Project 007 is an upcoming action and stealth video game that is being developed and published by IO Interactive. The project was announced back in 2020 and is created by the studio behind the current Hitman Trilogy. It will be the studio's first non-Hitman game in over a decade, and the game has already received a lot of praise purely based off the goodwill from what the studio has accomplished with the Hitman Trilogy. Let's break down the reveal, job listings, and the possibility of a trilogy. As always, all the sources will be linked in the description below, so make sure to check those out and support those original writers. With that out of the way, let's get into everything we know about Project 007. The game was revealed back in November of 2020 with a teaser trailer on the official James Bond YouTube channel. The teaser trailer is exactly how it sounds. A gun is loaded and the camera continues through the barrel while the iconic Bond theme plays. It announces IO Interactive as the developers and publisher, and then the trailer ends. The trailer also lists a website for additional details. If we head over to the website, an additional description is given which says, quote, "It's Bond, James Bond. Project 007, working title, is a brand new James Bond video game to be developed and published by IO Interactive. Featuring a wholly original Bond story, players will step into the shoes of the world's favorite secret agent to earn their 00 status in the very first James Bond origin story. IO Interactive is currently recruiting elite talent from around the world to join the team that will build out this exciting and unique gaming title." There are quite a few details given here, the first being that not only is this an origin story, but also an all-new original story, which means don't expect a story similar to any established Bond. Also, Project 007 is not the official name, it's a placeholder as of now that will be updated at some point in the future. Next, I want to cover some of the important details that were given in job listings for this title. The job listings I'm going to cover are specifically for Project 007 and not for any of IO Interactive's other titles. Let's start with a job listing that has since been filled and removed. When the project was first announced, there was a listing for a writer. The job description said, quote, "Give life to game vision by joining our writer's room and together define the story for our Bond universe and character through both linear and non-linear narrative. As part of the team, you will be a key player between narrative and game vision and will help marry the two into one immersive and compelling game experience. We will count on you not only as a narrative designer, but also a creative thinker who sees opportunities within story for achieving the best player experience. The writer will also create character-driven scenes with substantial dialogue. The listing also mentions the writer will create complex storylines and in-game subplots tied to larger story goals that lead players down a story path." A lot of speculation around this job listing focused on the fact that this James Bond game will have a bigger emphasis on story and James Bond as a character compared to the Hitman series. James Bond is usually known to have the one-liners and wit, so it makes sense the main character will have more to say compared to Agent 47. It's also safe to assume the story will be more complex and hopefully larger than Hitman 3, and I'm excited to see how the team pulls this off. Another listing I don't want to spend too much time on is for the cinematic artist. The listing states that the game engine will be used to create scenes that contribute to a wide variety of narratives, which goes hand in hand with the writer. Expect cutscenes similar to those previously in the Hitman series. The next relevant posting is for the AI programmer. Under the, quote, "We would love it if you had" category, they list experience working on third-person action games. I don't think it's too far of a jump to assume that this James Bond title will be third-person. And the next job listing I cover will back that up further, especially because the studio is already so accomplished with third-person action games. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Another job that backs up the third-person idea further comes from the senior gameplay animator. As a requirement, one of the bullet points says, quote, working efficiently and effectively within technical setup of animations in our proprietary engine Glacier 2. This confirms that Project 007 will still be using IO Interactive's in-house Glacier engine, which is already optimized for third-person gameplay, and has been very well received for Hitman 3 and the optimization for consoles and PC. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for IO to completely rework the engine to run in first person when the engine is already polished for third person. These job listings seem to all back that up. Also, if you like the look of the Hitman games already, expect something similar with Project 007. The last job listing I want to cover is for the audio director. Once again, under the "we would love it if you had it" subsection, the team lists experience with a sandbox storytelling game. This sounds like the team might be taking a similar approach to the James Bond game as they did with the Hitman series, with this sandbox style areas. It will hopefully include these massive sandbox areas that give the player a lot of freedom and variety of play. For all these job listings, I want to close out by saying that everything is subject to change and nothing is guaranteed with any of these listings. It's also important to note that many of these jobs are still unfilled at the time of recording, which will slow down the development process as well. That covers everything I found important with these job listings. Next, I want to move on to an interview with the Danish publication DR. They were able to interview the studio director of IO Interactive, and he teased that Project 007 could be the start of a new trilogy for IO. The translated quote said, "We have been allowed to make our own digital Bond, which will not lean on a Bond actor. We are also making a completely original story, and you could easily imagine that a trilogy could come out of it." It shouldn't come as a surprise to fans of IO Interactive that their vision and gameplay could easily turn any IP into a trilogy. The studio also seems to be preparing for the next chapter of their studio post-Hitman. As the interview continued on, the studio director said the studio is starting 2021 with around 200 employees, but expect that number to grow to over 400 in the next few years. He says that a large part of the future employees will work on and develop this new Bond universe. We don't know the specifics of the license deal that let them work on the James Bond franchise, but clearly the studio is ramping up production and is expecting this game and franchise to be a massive force for the studio for years to come, especially when you consider they worked on their Hitman trilogy for almost a decade. And I think I speak for most of us when I say we would all be okay with a decade of IO Interactive James Bond games. The final story I want to cover backs up the studio growing and building their team. In April of 2021, IO Interactive announced they were opening a new studio in Barcelona. It is now the third studio branch under the IO Interactive name. They say the new studio will be important for the coming years between working on Hitman, James Bond's origin story, and the new IP they are also working on. The new studio should also help the team get to their ideal 400 employee number. And that for the most part is everything we know about Project 007 and where I'm going to end this video. I know there are still many unanswered questions, but this title is still very early in development and we won't see a release for 2 to 3 years at a minimum. So stay patient and I will keep everyone updated as more information is released. Make sure to like and share this video, subscribe for weekly gaming news, and I will see you guys in the next one.